Hello, YouTubers. Everybody here with me on Black Friday. Enjoyed your Thanksgiving, and I hope you had plenty of victuals to eat. Leftovers for the next few days. And make a dozen different dishes out of all the leftover turkey. Oh my goodness, I tell you what, it's going to be an interesting weekend here. We got a lot of news going on, so I'm going to hop right on into it and bring it to you. First one we have here is off of Truth Revolt. It says Austin protesters chant, "What's better than dead cops?" Wearing red face mask with Soviet hammer and sickle printed on them. And there's video in this one. All these URLs are in the description of the video if you want to take a look at some of this stuff and check out the videos and things that are in them. See, here it is Thanksgiving and these people protesting and acting up like this. It says a video has been circulating the internet over the last few days of young protesters in Austin, Texas, chanting in favor of killing mass numbers of cops. Prior to the shootings of 4 police officers elsewhere in the South within a 24-hour period. The young people, some uniformed in skinny jeans and red face masks with communist hammer and sickle emblem printed on them, were apparently protesting Donald Trump and his intention to bring law and order back to America. At least one protester waved a red flag with hammer and sickle. The video clip above begins with the protesters chanting "F the police" as they marched down an Austin sidewalk with police patrol cars escorting them. Then the chanting changes to "What's better than one dead cop? 2 dead cops. What's better than 2 dead cops? 3 dead cops," and so on. The number reaches 15 dead cops before the chanting and the video stop. This shameful display came days before Detective Benjamin Marconi was shot and killed while sitting in his car outside of the San Antonio Police Department, from where this video was shot. 3 other officers were shot within a 24-hour period in St. Louis, Missouri, Gladstone, Missouri, and Sanibel, Florida. As the Blue Lives Matter website notes, these courageous rebels hiding their identities behind red face masks, protesters who stood outside the Texas State Capitol building in protest this weekend, armed with rifles and holding a sign that read, "Make racist afraid again." Mercy. The next article I have for you is off of fellowshipoftheminds.com, and this one says, Obama's homosexual bundler arrested for child rape. A bundler is someone who donates money to a politician or political campaign, but solicits and bundles donations from other donors into a substantial sum. Bundlers perform an important service for politicians. If a bundler for Trump is arrested for pedophilia, it would be all over the mainstream media, such as, or otherwise known as the fake media. Is a bundler for Obama who's been arrested for just that. But instead of reporting this, the New York Times devoted its resources to publishing a long article to debunk rumors and claims in the alternative media that a DC pizzeria named Comet Ping Pong is a hub for pedophiles. M. Decker reports for USA Today that on March the 16th, 2016, Portland, Oregon police arrested Bean felony for having sex with a 15-year-old boy last year. Given the age of the victim, a minor, that makes it rape. And this guy's name's Terrence Bean, 6. The next day, Bean's former boyfriend, 25-year-old Kaya Loy Lawson, was also arrested for sexual abuse of the same 15-year-old boy. Between the two men had ended. Lawson went public with claims that Bean had a practice of secretly videotaping himself having sex with others. Bean is a big money Democratic donor and liberal political activist with connections inside the Obama White House, having raised $500,000 for Obama re-election campaign. And there's a picture here of Bean showing him flying on Air Force One with Obama. The Federal Election Commission campaign's finance database shows Bean has donated thousands of dollars every election cycle to Democratic Party's most powerful leaders, including Hillary and Bill Clinton. Party leader Harry Reid, Senator Dick Durbin, and Representative Barney Frank, among others. By OregonLive.com, Bean has been one of the Democratic donors and an influential figure in gay rights circles in the state. He helped found two major groups, the Human Rights Campaign and the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund, and has been a major contributor for several Democratic presidential candidates, including Barack Obama. Identifies Bean's so-called civil rights organization, Human Rights Campaign, as having created the template for the transgender bathroom bill ordinance sweeping across America. Days Decker observes, this story was first reported by the local press, and there have been vague references to sexual trouble for Bean and Lawson, but the national media has not picked it up. Politically convenient for President Obama as he tries to pull off one of his riskiest political moves ever with executive order. If one of President George W. Bush's bundlers would have been charged with child rape, make no mistake about it, the media feeding frenzy would have been uncontrollable, which would giving the severity of the allegation. The silence surrounding the Terrence Bean exposure, the national media's standard in detail. Thank you, Brett Decker, for reporting the truth. And then there's some links that you can click on depth on that if you want to research more. The article I have is off of the Common Sense Show with Dave Hodges, and it says, will this be the last American Thanksgiving? Is Obama the last American president? America suffers from what is called food vulnerability. Family has a blessed Thanksgiving, complete with all the turkey stuffing and pumpkin pie that you could eat. May you enjoy fellowship with those to us. I hope you are one of the 75% who actually has enough to eat. America is headed for very profound changes. At least what is really going on with Exit and the nefarious people who have become allies and seek to impose their will on California through any means possible is threatening. California by design, this will be your last tranquil Thanksgiving for quite some time. In the meantime, my California friends, avoid placing yourself on your family in large crowds over the next several weeks, particularly if you are white. All will be made clear to you tomorrow. Okay, if you are one of the remaining Americans who has enough to eat, count your blessings. We Americans have many Thanksgivings left to celebrate under the red, white, and blue. It has been announced that there will be a recount with regard to the general election in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and I have more on that in some other articles that I'll. It says, as it stands now, if Trump remains president-elect, we will have a revolution courtesy of Hillary and Obama are encouraging the rioting, and we'll be discussing tomorrow. Things are about to get real dicey, as it may not be safe. Well, it won't be safe to remain in your house because if Clinton wins in an overturned election. This will provide the impetus for revolution as well. Was correct when he said several weeks ago, no matter who wins, blood will eventually run in the streets. ReadyMadeResources.com told my listening audience that we are in blue-gray situation. No matter who wins the election, there will be civil war. Ironically, holiday season, it's become clear that food will be the primary weapon to be used against the American people. The meeting between Trump and Kissinger addressed this issue as well. Trump got told what is coming, and he will be powerless to stop it. Sort of. Your feast, did you think about the fact that we in America throw away more food have the opportunity to eat? to your Thanksgiving table, did you think about the fact that half the world goes to bed hungry? It's shame in this area as well. Since the end of World War II, most Americans have been blessed with plenty to eat, so much so that we simply take our overflowing of Thanksgiving blessings for granted. 800 number begging you to feed the hungry child, you would be mistaken. However, there are people who have power over us who would like to make last Thanksgiving that America will celebrate as a constitutional republic. And to some extent, America is extremely vulnerable to being starved into submission by the bankers as a means of political control. Thanksgiving football games on today, and you are bombarded by messages of love your veterans and aren't land with such blessings. Please consider the message of the picture contained in this graphic, or note that the statistics listed below in relation to our land of plenty is all BS. The powers that put you on your knees through of food. It says, Happy Thanksgiving. We are halfway to being starved into submission. A global awakening. One of the most hated and well-known globalists lamented in 2011 that there to the source of the tyranny of this planet, and what they must accelerate their timetable for completion of a global takeover. Press has subsequently been placed on humanity as we are under assault in ways never witnessed before. Destiny has arrived, America. Popular methods of subjugation has to do with controlling who eats and who dies. Historically, food has been one of the most of subjugation. Today, as we contemplate our good fortune with all our full plates, wouldn't it be ironic if we had to contemplate a future where millions were kept on the edge of starvation as a means of political control? Of course, this America could it. Few people know that can starve to death during the Great Depression and the Great American Holodomor of subjugating through starvation. The lessons of history clearly demonstrate that dictatorial regimes, whether they be socialist, communist, and will not hesitate to use food as a weapon against their own people in order to solidify power and impose absolute autocratic control from the masses by preventing it from being grown and harvested, by contaminating it and rendering it unfit for human consumption, or by simply preventing food from being distributed to targeted population. The two most notable examples of dictators using food as a weapon in order to destroy the free will of their people comes from the regimes of Stalin and Hitler. Engaged in his own Soviet-style Holocaust when in 1932 and in 1933 and established 6 to 20 million people in the Ukraine died from starvation when Stalin implemented his prescription of hope and change policies in order to eliminate the Ukraine's desire for becoming their own nation state. Upon assuming power, the Stalinist communist regime rapidly nationalized the food industry and forced all of the region's farms into collectives. Thus, Stalin's version of the Holocaust came to fruition in what history has dubbed the Holodomor. Perished in only 2-year period when the Soviet government began to exterminate the Ukrainian population by taking control of food and food production. That food could be used as a tool to discipline the masses and did not hesitate to use control of food as a type of carrot and stick, reward accomplishments and punish failure, as well as to ferment class distinctions in which his armed forces received the largest food ration cards. Skilled workers who were engaged in industries critical to the building of the German war machine received food ration cards, which were slightly less in value. And finally, the prisoners and the Jews received the lowest valued Nazi food ration cards. Food ration cards were as incentives to increase industrial production increased in value when production Nazis would be promoted, were diminished in value for the failure to meet Nazi production goals. Hitler's use of what referred to as classical conditioning techniques reduced the will of the German population to pack of dogs who were conditioned to be totally dependent upon the government for their survival. With over 50 million Americans on food stamps under the Obama administration, the potential for history to repeat itself is indeed real. Is turn off the EBT cards. Somalia thug Farah systematically starved his people into submission as a brutal civil war raged in both Darfur and Rwanda, where Islamic regimes sought the annihilation, and the use of food was one of the primary weapons designed to force compliance. And of course, Polo and Mao all used food deprivation to quarantine their political opposition and exact absolute allegiance to their respective dictatorial regimes. That the aforementioned dictators did not rule over the countries that enjoyed a Thanksgiving feast similar to what you and I are enjoying today. The U.S. government and its mass starvation policies. Food by the U.S. government has been a matter of official U.S. governmental covert policy since 1974 to 1975. 1974, National Security Council, directed by Henry Kissinger, completed a classified study entitled National Security Study Memorandum 200, Implications of Worldwide Population Growth for U.S. Security and Overseas Interests. Upon the unproven claims that population growth in lesser developed countries, LDC, a serious risk to America's national security. 1975, President Ford, based upon the tenets of the SM 200, a classified plan to forcibly reduce population growth in LDC countries through birth control, war, and famine. Security advisor Brett Scowcroft, CIA Director George H.W. Bush were tasked with implementing the plan, and Secretaries of State, Treasury, Defense, and Agriculture assisted in implementation of these insane genocidal plans. SM200 formally raised the question, would food be considered an instrument of national power? To accept food rationing to help people who can't control their population growth. These questions when he stated that he was predicting a series of contrived famines created by mandatory programs, and this would make exclusive reliance on birth control programs. Modern day application of in a scheme that would allow Henry to have his cake and eat it too, and that the world would finally be rid of the useless eaters. Control using food as one of the primary weapons has long been a matter of official policy, and a portion of President Obama's Executive Order 13603, resources preparedness, is a of that policy. Intended target are not the LDCs, but instead, and after Obama declares martial law, food will undoubtedly be used to gate the more resistant country. Could Obama become the next Stalin? For the extreme events like what happened in Ferguson, not only this time will be spread across the country, are real. Was to go into martial law lockdown, food would be used by this administration to control the population. This rebellion will begin in Los Angeles. If the Obama administration is successful in fanning the flames of radical racial violence on a mass scale, he will never leave office. The impetus behind the recounting of votes in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which is to create confusion and doubt about who is really in charge. Obama has executive orders on his side. On the surface, it seems unlikely the U.S. president would ever starve any segment of the American people to death. However, when one considers the implications of Obama's EO 13603, that Obama would not hesitate to make this Thanksgiving the last Thanksgiving. If not, why else would Obama have created the executive order? Total and absolute control where his executive order states the following. Food resources means all commodities and products, simple, mixed, or such as commodities or products that are capable of being ingested by either human beings or animals, irrespective of other uses which such commodities or products may be put at all stages of processing from the raw commodity to the products thereof in vendable or animal consumption. Food resources also means potable water packaged in commercially marketable containers, all starches, sugars, vegetable and animal, marine fat and oils, seeds, hemp and flax fiber, but does not mean any such material after it loses its identity as an agricultural commodity or agricultural product. Food resources facilities means plants, machinery, vehicles, including on farm and other facilities required for the production, processing, distribution, and storage, including cold storage of food resources, and for the domestic distribution of farm equipment and fertilizer. This unconstitutional EO is particularly disturbing in that it clearly states that the government has control over anything that is capable of being ingested by either human beings or animals. If you thought that you, Fido, were going to get through the coming food crisis by storing and consuming dog food, think again. How will farmers maintain the nation's food supply when all fertilizer, their farm equipment, and all of their vehicles are under the control of the psychopathic or the next power-hungry president? The term all food storage facilities includes your refrigerator, your pantry, and food in your cabinets, as well as what is on your kitchen table. In short, anywhere you keep food is now under control of the government, redistributed. Modern day America. Were you scratching your head in bewilderment as you watched a couple years back on the news as the Amish have had their farms raided, raw milk producers have been jailed, and kids running lemonade stands have been shut down and ticketed? These abuses are being government in that it represents a mere conditioning process designed to get all U.S. citizens to the idea that the government owns all food and food production. Aspect of this EO is that Hegelian dialect, false flag event, pretense to seize food and imperil survivability. Section 201B of the Obama EO clearly states that this EO is enforceable under both emergency and non-emergency conditions. In conclusion, footnote in history, Hitler used the Jews and forced labor as he systematically starved them to death in the labor death camps. What is to prevent or PDD 51 from being carried out on American soil? EO 13603 calls for civilian conscription under the Department of Labor without compensation. Setting the table to take his place among Stalin, Hitler, Pol Pot, Castro, and Mao in the long line of tyrannical leaders who would grant themselves the authority to subjugate the masses by using food as a weapon after declaring martial law? How long do you think that your Thanksgiving leftovers will last? Desperately need to look at history in order to understand what happens every time the people of a government allows the government to control its food supplies and farms. That you all will enjoy your Thanksgiving dinner, because if Obama decides to implement EO 13603, today's Thanksgiving dinner could become known as the last Thanksgiving dinner. There's that article, very interesting. For you is off of conservativetribune.com. It says NBC caught red-handed trying to sell false information. Supporters of failed Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton continue to try to figure out what went wrong for them in the 2016 election. Blame du jour is the prevalence of so-called fake news on social media. It could be anything from blatantly false articles to obvious satire, from misleading clickbait headlines to out-of-context quotes. And while mainstream media outlets like NBC have fretted openly over the effect it has on the public, just as guilty of promoting such things as predominantly right-leaning alternative media outlets hurl smears and accusations. The recent interview between MSNBC's Chuck Todd, who has himself delved into whole fake, according to Real Clear Politics, and President-elect Donald Trump's new chief of staff, Reince, where conveniently only part of Priebus's response to a pointed question was used for a glaring misleading headline on NBC's coverage of the interview. Had asked if Priebus would unequivocally rule out the creation of a Muslim registry under a Trump administration, to which Priebus replied, "Look, I'm not going to rule out anything, but we're not going to have a registry based on religion." Its own relationship with the truthfully desired, NBC promoted the interview with a headline that screamed only that the new administration was not going to rule anything out, leaving out the second part of the response, which stated there would be no registry based on religion. Several other liberal-leaning media outlets, including the New York Daily News, ran with the NBC headlines and promoted the misleading half-quote, essentially committing the same sin of perpetrating fake news that they purport to be so concerned about. Meanwhile, conservative-leaning alternative outlets, such as this one, are undertaking extra efforts to ensure the accuracy and truthfulness of what they are reporting, lest they fall into the same habit as the mainstream of spewing nonsensical propaganda that diminishes credibility and is aimed more at spreading a narrative-driven agenda instead of informing the public with the truth. Mainstream media will begin to follow their own advice and admonitions regarding true and fake news, but on that for you is off of Breitbart. The hamster to fling it up here. Here we go. Woolworths axes Christmas decorations are in business now. A row has broken out, told by Woolworths staff that Christmas decorations will no longer be stocked as it's now a Muslim store. Germany. Residents were shocked to see the Woolworths branch Yuletide selection, which included gifts, tree decorations, Santas, was removed after just a few days on display. One shopper reported that the entire Christmas range was on display on Friday but had disappeared when she visited the next day. Dortmund residents said when she arrived at Woolworths on Saturday, she was greeted by empty shelves which had been full the day before. The sudden withdrawal, boasting, "We are a Muslim business, we don't want to sell Christmas articles." The branch's manager confirmed festive items were no longer being sold at the store. Those articles are hardly in demand here. Already last year, everything remained unsold, she told reporters. News about the Dortmund Woolworths went viral, prompting the company's head office to make a statement on the controversy. Diana, Woolworths is, of course, not a Muslim company. Christmas merchandise is available from September onwards and should be sold out by the end of December. Demand was too low, therefore the goods were distributed to other branches. She added that few customers now celebrate Christmas in the area, citing local conditions to the stores surrounding locale is now mostly Muslim as a result of mass immigration. That Christmas now make up less than 30% of the total population of northern Dortmund, where the store is located. Catholics spoke out to criticize the trend in public daycare centers of dropping Christmas festivities in favor of paying lip service to the diverse cultures of migrants. Merkel was roundly mocked last month. Germans who are worried about Islamization can, by playing Christmas carols on the flute, conference in Wittenberg. Article I have for you is off of yahoo.com news, and it says chief says politicians are failing globalization. The incoming head of the United Nations warned on Tuesday that losers of globalization in rich countries have felt ignored by establishment politicians, prompting them to turn to nationalist agendas. U.S. election and Brexit referendum. Antonio Guterres, in October to take over as UN Secretary General next year, told a conference in his native Lisbon had undermined the willingness to receive refugees in Europe this year. He said the world must reestablish international protection for refugees coming from war zones such as Syria, but it would not be easy as developed countries were turning to nationalist agendas. Struggled to handle a huge influx of refugees faced by the war in Syria. The United States has accepted only a very small number of refugees and may take even fewer next year. In 2016, we have witnessed a dramatic deterioration in the national protection regime for refugees. This example started in the development world. It essentially in Europe, it is spreading now like a virus into other parts of the world. UN High Commissioner for Refugees until last year linked the growing resistance to accepting refugees to wider concerns about globalization. I don't think we can look strictly at the refugee issue. I think the problem is a broader problem, he told the conference on Europe's refugee crisis. There was consensus in the mid-1990s that globalization would benefit all, he said, but a lot of people were left behind. In the developed world, there are those who have been losers in globalization, he said. The recent analysis of the Rust Belt in the United States, I think, is clear demonstration of that when we speak about the elections. This month's election in the United States, in part, support from voters who have seen their jobs lost to countries with cheaper labor. So globalization has not been as successful as we had hoped, and lots of people became not only angry with it, but feeling establishments and international organizations are not paying attention. We're not taking care of them, he said. What he called a kind of evolution. Establishment parties now tend to win elections, and referendums tended to attract majorities against whatever was put to a vote. The article I have is off of westernjournalism.com. Trump reveals why he let Hillary off the hook for prosecution. Greatly. I can get this to cooperate with me here. Here we go. President-elect Donald Trump revealed his reason for deciding not to prosecute former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton over her use of a private email server. Clinton's, I really don't. She went through a lot and suffered greatly in many different ways, Trump said during a sit-down with the New York Times reporters. When asked if Trump thought making a campaign promise would disappoint his supporters, Trump was confident they wouldn't be upset. They will be disappointed, Trump said. I think I will explain it that we, in many ways, will save our country. That the issue had been looked at nauseum, and that it was time to move forward and focus on more important things. When President-elect, who is also the head of your party, tells you he doesn't wish to pursue these charges, it sends a strong message, tone, and content to the members, Trump senior advisor Kellyanne Conway told MSNBC on Tuesday. I think Hillary Clinton still has to face the fact that the majority of Americans don't find her to be honest or trustworthy, but if Trump can help her heal, perhaps that's a good thing, Conway added. I think he's thinking of many different things as he prepares to become the president of the United States, and things that sound like the campaign in them. During an exclusive interview November the 11th with the Wall Street Journal, Trump already showed disinterest in moving forward with prosecution of Clinton. I've given a lot of thought because I want to solve health care, jobs, border control, tax reform, he said at the time. Immediately after that comment, the conservative news outlet Breitbart ran the headline, "Trump doesn't wish to pursue Clinton email charges." Supporters of Trump speculate this may be a ploy or attempt to depoliticize the FBI and the Justice Department. Bill Mitchell, who was an avid supporter of Trump through the election, views this incident as strategic positioning. Obama's manipulation of the FBI and part of the swamps he wanted drained, backing away personally, Trump is fulfilling that promise, Mitchell wrote Tuesday on Twitter. Trump supporters not to lose faith, and that it's quite possible that in 2 months, Trump's presidency, the FBI and Jeff Sessions could announce a Hillary grand jury. We have here Hill.com, and it says Obama cracks puns galore at final turkey pardon. A couple turkeys so that they don't have to be served up on the dining room table. Article reads, the dad jokes were full display Wednesday as President Obama pardoned his final Thanksgiving turkeys. He may continue the tradition as a private citizen. Cutting this habit cold turkey, Obama said to laughs and groans during a ceremony at the Rose Garden. Some bad ones in here, but this is the last time I'm doing this, so I'm not leaving any room for leftovers. Yes, we cran. Let's get on with pardoning everybody. Traffic can be in a foul mood. Obama then met Tot, the turkey up for clemency, and Tater, the bird's alternate, both of whom will now live out their days at Virginia Tech University and Blacksburg, home of the Hokies. Here in a backup role, just in Tot can't fulfill his duties, Obama said before poking fun at Vice President Biden. He's sort of like Vice President. Get him a pair of aviator glasses. Pardon Tot, the turkey to energetically flap its wings as the president laughed and shouted freedom. Tony comic did turn serious as Obama thanked Americans for his 2 terms in office. On this Thanksgiving, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the American people for the trust you placed in me over these last 8 years, he said. Thanksgiving is also a reminder of our national strength. Out of many, we are one. Accepting our differences and diversity, we have, try that again, while accepting our differences and diversity, it's also never been more important. We are defined by values and ideals that have been a light to humanity. We have a lot more in common than divides us. And just on my own note, I was really surprised to hear that the names of the turkeys were Tater and Tot, Hillary, but hey, I digress. The next article we have is off of thehill.com. It's Trump's Thanksgiving message. We must heal our divisions. If you'd like to pull that up and take a look at it, it says President-elect Donald Trump said he hoped Americans would come together to heal our divisions in a video address Wednesday ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday. In a 2-minute address posted on YouTube, that the election had left hurt feelings but urged the public to work together and move forward. That on this Thanksgiving we will begin to heal our divisions and move forward as one country, strengthened by a shared purpose and very, very common resolve. We have just finished a long political campaign. Emotions are raw and tensions just don't heal overnight, he continued. unfortunately, but we have a chance to now make history together, to bring real change to Washington, real safety to our cities, and real prosperity to our communities, cities. So important to me and so important to our country. We must enlist the effort of our entire nation. Political campaign is now over, he added. Now begins a great national campaign to rebuild our country and to restore the full promise of America for all of our people. I have here is off the Hill, and it says, Trump working on Thanksgiving. I'm making progress in the U.S. Donald Trump said Thursday that he's making progress in his attempt to keep a Carrier air conditioning plant in Indianapolis open. Earlier this year, it would move its factory to Monterrey, Mexico, eliminating 1,400 jobs by 2019. On the campaign trail, Trump threatened to call executives at the company and hit them with high tariffs and air conditioners imported from Mexico. If they're going to fire all their people, move their plant to Mexico, build air conditioners, and think they're going to sell those air conditioners to the United States, he said in July. The next article that we have here is off of zerohedge.com. Yes. Here, there we go. Jill Stein raises enough money to force Wisconsin recount. Up next. After I read this, I have another thing I'm going to read you about this so you'll understand a little bit more about the recounts. We wrote about a group of scientists which included voting rights attorney John Bonzafaz. And that'd be a good time to take one. Mispronounced that all over the place. John Bonifaz and J. Alex Halderman, the director of the University of Michigan Center for Computer Security and Society, who announced they had found evidence that results in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania may have been manipulated or hacked. Of course, they presented absolutely no evidence to support their startling claim other than to point out that Clinton received an average of 7% fewer votes in counties that used electronic voting machines rather than optical scanners and paper ballots. Apparently, that was all the evidence that Jill Stein needed to be convinced that she might have a chance in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, where she received 1.1% and 1.1% of the vote, respectively. So she started an online funding campaign to raise the millions of dollars required to force the recounts. Says Jill Stein's effort to raise money for recounts in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan is obviously being done on behalf of the Hillary Clinton campaign. It's approach, we would expect nothing less, as it allows Hillary to maintain the high road as the gracious loser while allowing someone else to play the bad guy, typically Clinton, or typical, really. So in less than one day, Jill Stein raised over $3 million, which is more than $2 million needed to force a recount in Wisconsin. While she attributed the accomplishment to the power of grassroots organizing, we would tend to be a little more skeptical and would love to see exactly where those donations came from. Then again, maybe we're wrong, and there are really many disaffected snowflakes out there willing to blow their money on an extreme long shot. On meeting recounts cost for Wisconsin, raising money to pay for the first round so quickly is a miraculous feat to the power of grassroots organizing, her campaign said. Now that we have nearly completed funding Wisconsin's recount, which is due on Friday, we can begin to tackle the funding for Michigan's recount due Monday and Pennsylvania's recount due Wednesday. Stein said Wednesday that the many Americans are wondering if the election results were reliable after a decisive and painful race and reported hacks into voter and party databases and individual email accounts. These concerns need to be investigated before the 2016 presidential election is certified, she said in a statement released by her campaign. Copy of that statement if you want to pull that up to read it. It says, meanwhile, what the scientists and the hopeful New York Meg didn't report is exactly which counties in Wisconsin used electronic voting machines versus paper ballots. As anyone can easily see by taking a look at the election breakdown in Wisconsin, Trump's margins of victory were over 40 points in multiple rural counties, while 7%, huge margin to a bunch of disaffected Hillary voters. It's not unreasonable at all once you start to dig into the details. And of course, Trump won most of the counties in Wisconsin outside of the major population centers. Allow logic to get in the way. Onward to Pennsylvania and Michigan, hoping to raise $500,000 for filing fees in Pennsylvania and $600,000 for fees in Michigan. The total cost of the effort in the three states could be as high as $7 million, her campaign said. This all comes after months of Hillary and the left lecturing Donald Trump over his refusal to blindly accept the results of the election, repeatedly called a direct threat to our democracy. And there's several videos in this if you want to pull them up and take a look at them. Goes on and says, meanwhile, it didn't take long for liberal elites around the country to completely reverse their rhetoric on challenging election results. Krugman's before and after thoughts. It has these Twitter things on here. Look at those. So there's that article. Now, for you, many of you that are avid watchers of my show and go to the other chat rooms and stuff, you know Mary Brown, and she did some research for me, and she posted this on her Facebook page. She says, for those wanting recounts, there are laws as to when recounts can be triggered. Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 1.2%, and under Pennsylvania law, that's over the threshold to trigger a recount. Initiates recounts. When a discrepancy is found in the reconciliation of the number of registered electors and the total vote, the county board is authorized to recount the ballots. 25 PS 54B. In districts using paper ballots or ballots electronically tabulated in the district, discrepancy is found of the sealed and unsealed general returns and the subsequent examination of the documentation, then the county board shall recount the ballots. See 25 154D 1 and 5. Where electronically tabulated ballots are used in conjunction with central ballot tabulation, a discrepancy in the number of persons voting between the computer return sheets and the sealed general returns will require the count boards to recount the ballots. PS 3154D4. Moreover, county boards shall conduct a recount or recanvass cast whenever it shall appear that there is a discrepancy in the returns of any election district. This county board may also conduct a recount or recanvass of their own motion. See 25 PS 3154E. Timing, see 25 PS 3154F. Vote margin, less than or equal to 0.5%. Margin recounts are initiated by the Secretary of the Commonwealth and are only available for candidates or ballot questions appearing on the ballot in every election district in the Commonwealth when the margin is 0.5% or less of all votes cast for the office or ballot question. 3154G1. Close vote margin recounts may also take place under a court's jurisdiction, 5 PS 3161 and 3162. Counties receive a reimbursement from the state for the recount. See 25 PS 3154G8. Timing. See 25 PS 3451G2, G5, and G6. By the Secretary and conducted under the jurisdiction of the court. See 25 PS 3161A1 and 3162A2. Candidate initiated options. Not file a direct request for a recount. They may appeal the order of or decision of any county board regarding the computation or canvassing of the returns of any prime primary or election or regarding any recount or recanvass thereof. During the process, the court may determine that a recount is necessary, see 25 PS 3157. So in Pennsylvania, they will have to go to courts not if the voting machines were out of calibration, and we know that they are never out in favor of a conservative. Count trigger is vote count with 2,000 regardless of how many votes are cast, and Trump is leading by 11,612 votes. Will be done on that trigger. Michigan law, close vote margin, vote counts difference not percentage based. By a close count margin are mandatory if the close vote margin is triggered, but only at the statewide level. This requirement applies to both initiatives and candidates in any primary or election except for partisan offices in which more than one person is elected. Laws 168.880A1. Additional exceptions are noted in the Bureau of Elections manual, see page 5. The margin is set at 2,000 votes or less, regardless of the number of votes cast in the election. And when that margin applies, neither candidates nor voters would be required to file a petition as set forth below to initiate a recount. Initiated options, closed vote margin required in certain cases. Candidate determines which precincts to recount. Party official may petition for candidate. Any candidate at county, city, township, or village level who believes he or she is aggrieved on account of fraud or mistake in the canvass or returns of the votes may apply for a recount of one or multiple precincts with the appropriate canvassing board. Laws 168.862. A candidate for office canvassed by the boards or is the office of representative in Congress, state representative, or state senator for a district located wholly within one county may petition for a votes. The petition must allege that the candidate is aggrieved on account of fraud or mistake in the canvass of the votes by the inspectors of the election or the returns. Michigan Comp Laws 168.81. Section 168.879 also applies to elections for electors for president and vice president since they are canvassed by Board of State Canvassers. Laws 168.841. However, presidential primary candidates are explicitly excluded. Michigan Comp Laws 168.879A. Senatorial and representative office decided by a close vote margin, party officials may petition for recounts only if the vote margin is 500 votes or less for senatorial contests and 200 votes or less for representative contests. Political party chair is eligible to apply for a recount on behalf of the candidate and need not allege fraud or mistake. Michigan Comp Laws 168.8792. Timing. Michigan Comp Laws 168.8791C, 168.8663, and 168.875. And Wisconsin is the third state they want to contest, and these are the laws. Candidate initiated, voter initiate, candidate initiated options. Determines which precincts to recount. Any candidate at any election may petition for a recount. CWS 9.011A1 is required to state that a mistake or fraud has been committed or that another specified defect, irregularity, or occurred in the conduct of the election. CWS 9.0112B. The candidate filing a recount petition may choose to select only a few wards to be included in the recount. CWS 9.011A3. Is not a complete recount. The opposing candidate or any voter or party has the right to request a recount in any or all of the remaining wards, CWS 9.014. Timing, CWS 9011A1, 9013 for the timing requirements related to the right to complete recount after a partial recount, CWS 9014. Created options. Voter may request recounts for the initiatives and questions. Any elector who voted on a given question in any election may petition for a recount for that question, CWS 9011A1. The petitioner is required to state that a mistake or fraud has been committed, other specified defect, irregularity, or illegality conduct of the election, CWS 9011-2B. Filing a recount petition may choose to select only a few wards to be included in the recount, CWS 9011A3. If it's not a complete recount, any voter or other interested party may petition for a recount in any or all of the remaining wards, CWS 9014. In Wisconsin, they're going to have to claim fraud to trigger a recount and state what that fraud may be. Good luck. We all know Republicans are not the ones doing the massive voter fraud. And if they demand recounts, that means Trump can challenge them in return, and it won't cost him a dime. They find a crap load of bad Democrat votes and no bad Republican. There you have that. We have here's of the conservativetribune.com. It says, here's what the media won't tell you about the popular vote. 2 weeks, the liberal media has been complaining about how former Secretary of State Clinton won the popular vote, but Donald Trump is the president-elect. Politico ran a story that Clinton's lead in the popular vote had just surpassed 2 million votes, but Trump still held the advantage in the Electoral College. What has failed to mention is that the general election doesn't use the popular vote to determine the winner. Both candidates knew that they needed to get 270 electoral votes to win. We saw projection maps about the path to 270 and talk about swing states with far less emphasis on the popular vote because the Electoral College was what really mattered. Now that Clinton lost the Electoral College race, the media has fixated on the popular vote. That even if we had a purely popular vote election, that would be no guarantee that Clinton would have won by the same margin she did this year. Popular vote system, on the other hand, every vote in every state would count equally. Likely to devote substantial resource driving up turnouts in these same states, the article noted. NPR noted that Clinton's popular vote advantage was due in large part to California, which still had roughly 2 million ballots processed. Many who live in a state like New York, where they know that casting a vote for a Republican in the presidential election is utterly worthless because the state will always swing Democrat in the 2016 presidential election. However, if the election results were based on popular vote totals, that would provide incentive for many more Republicans in traditionally blue states to come out and vote, and vice versa. Which exists for the same reason that we have the Senate, to give voices to people living in states that aren't as large as places like New York and Texas and California. There's that information. What I was trying to explain to you in one of my broadcasts last week about why we have the Electoral College. The next one I have for you is off of the Conservative Tribune, and it says, blackout. KKK graffiti shows up at college. Media silent when perps outed as anti-Trumpers. Article for you about Kansas University, where they had that picture of the cheerleaders with their leather sweaters, and then somebody stole the girls, got the picture, and then put a caption on it and slapped it on the internet. Well, this is a little different. This says, forget Social Security. Well, no, wait a minute. That's an ad. Boy, I love the way they do that to me. This is off of, and it's about graffiti. And it says, two college students intent on drawing attention to President-elect Donald Trump's alleged racism engaged in their own idiotic brand of racism Saturday by smearing racist graffiti on the wall of Griffin Hall at Williams College in Massachusetts. According to the Boston Globe, the words AMKKK among their peers who presumably feared the Ku Klux Klan might be present on their campus. The college student newspaper, the Williams Record, reported that at least one student organization canceled a scheduled event in the building due to the fears caused by the graffiti. College president Adam Falk released a campus-wide email Monday morning falsely connecting the graffiti with Trump. In the current post-election climate, we have heightened awareness for any actions or expressions that may be, he wrote. What occurred was not even remotely tied to anything Trump had ever said or done during his election. Based on the misinformed concerns of two brats who were finally tracked down Monday afternoon, released a follow-up email. The students told campus security that they had committed the vandalism to bring attention to the effects of the presidential election on many within our community, Falk said. The use of AMKKK was not a specific reference from anyone affiliated with our supportive was not a specific reference from anyone affiliated with or supportive of the Ku Klux Klan, nor was it intended as a threat, he wrote. Rather, we understand it was meant to signify America, and it's spelled AMERIKKKA. That America references racism in our society. Tuesday morning, barely any media outlets had picked up on the story, though Vibe magazine did publish a piece claiming that more than 700 incidents of hate and racism have been reported since Trump won the election. Many other publishers failed to note, however, was that more and more of these alleged incidents were being debunked every day. But hey, in the modified words of quoted by political commentator Sean Hannity, let not your hearts be troubled. So there's that one. And then the last one I have for you, this is your feel good. End the show on a little higher note, something to raise your vibration with, if you will. And this is going to be a screen share of a video. I think you will enjoy it. We'll get this up here. 2 minutes long.
For an entire class of 26 families saving for college education is Almaguer reports those worries about the future are now over thanks to $1 million gift. And College Friday inside Mrs. Ashton's kindergarten class.
That's where Christiane is going to go to college?
Most of her 26 students come from low-income, single-parent homes, where the price of lunch, much less college, is out of reach. But not anymore. Marty Burbank wants to pay for every student here to go to college.
I'm gonna put off retirement a few years.
A lawyer who met his wife on a boat and got married on a yacht, dream cruiser,
Times.
when he realized there was a better way to spend his money.
Sermon about charity and giving and sacrifice, and at that point I really felt like I could invest in this boat, or I could invest in 26 kids and hopefully make a difference in their lives.
The gift and the offer is life-changing. Their future literally is different because of this.